Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Charles Wollertz, my channel is Wollertz Photography, and today I'm doing my very first photo review video. I've seen a lot of other YouTubers that do photo reviews, but I haven't seen one that's geared towards stock photography. All photography is the same. You cut the same rules, the same concept, but stock photography is just slightly different. And I want to help anyone that's interested in photographing stock and achieve better results with their images. And I've learned a lot through reviews, people reviewing my images and looking at other people's images. And today I'm going to do just that. I've selected 10 images, just random, from people that send me images to that email that's linked down below. And let's start this because I want to keep this video short. There's one thing I want to make clear. Whenever somebody reviews your images, these images mean nothing to me. I didn't take them. To you, they're a memory. They're something you created. So you have an attachment towards these images. And that is something that I don't want to insult anybody. I'm just trying to help. I want to keep it as positive as I can. And it's just a way to learn from a photo review. And that I just wanted to make that clear, that from my perspective, I'm just looking at the sellability of the image and how to improve. So with that, let's get started here. Okay, so the first image I have here, it's a little dark. And let me, the first thing I noticed is the horizon needs to be level. If the horizon's not level, then you have very little chances of getting accepted. And that's a very easy tweak here with Lightroom. You can see the horizon. I could just go by eye because the horizon is obvious, or I can use this little angle tool here. And all you do is just draw a line where the water is, because water is level. And then there you go. You finish the crop, and now the image is straight. There's not a lot of detail, and I know this is a small file from a cell phone, so there's not going to be a lot of information. You can see that the shadows are completely gone, and that's something to do with cell phones, with the technology used to capture the image. The composition is fine. I just wish there would have been more detail here in the shadows. As you can see, it's just not recoverable. So anyway, this image is not gonna get accepted. A little bit more contrast would have brought out more color. It just made it pop a little bit more. Remember, you're competing with a lot of other photographers. You want your images to pop, but you don't want them to be overly done. So in this case, like I said, there's not a lot of information. It is a, let me see, it's a JPEG file from a cell phone, so it doesn't have a lot of, there's no data in the highlights or in the shadows. The next one is another cell phone image. The one thing I noticed again is with cell phones, if you can see that halo around the sun, cell phones darken, they automatically add a filter. A lot of cell phones do. And this is not gonna get accepted because it is like an HDR image that's not done properly. And that is 100% the cell phone. The composition's fine. If I was to change something, I would cut some of the sky because the clouds are not as dramatic, and bring the sun down to a third of the image. It's also missing information on the shadows. And again, that is the cell phone, the equipment. The composition was good. The concept is simple, it's easy. I know there's probably a million images like this. If it was clear, it would get accepted. I just don't know that it would sell because, again, there's a lot of images of sunsets, and even though I sell some, you would need more of a concept. So maybe shoes in the sand or footprints in the sand or something that cleans up the image a little bit, but it gives you a concept and not just a snapshot of a sunset. So this image here, first of all, it would have to be editorial for many reasons. There's people in the background right here. There's signs and logos, and even the surfboard has a ID number. The image is fine. I would do a little bit more contrast and maybe recover some of the highlights. This is a 20 megapixel image. It has plenty of size, and has a 35mm 1.8, so it's from a Sony camera. So it has a lot of potential to work with here. And how was this image captured? So this was taken at f11. Okay, one thing I would have done here is open up your lens all the way at 1.8 or even f2.8 and come down a little bit lower to the board and show a little bit more of the beach. At 2.8, you'll blur the background, even at 35 millimeters, and that would give you, if you're close enough to the board, that will blur the background, and that will give you an image that doesn't have to be editorial. It could get selected as an editorial. I just don't see a concept. There's nothing happening for the image to sell. And like I said, to improve in one aspect, I would just get a little bit lower and show more of the beach. And if you're trying to hide something like the signs or the people, go wide open, open up 1.8, 2.8, just get low so that the background is blurred and your surfboard and everything's sharp. In this case, I would delete right here in Lightroom. I'll use the Band-Aid tool and take out this the serial number for the camera, and now it's fine. Now it's for the surfboard, and now it's just, you know, a regular surfboard. If the background was blurred, you wouldn't be able to see where it's at or who the business is and any of this, and that would give it more potential. I don't see any visible noise. The only thing I did was add more contrast. Let me compare it here to before and after, just to make the image pop a little bit more. Maybe the white balance looks a little bit blue. Let me bring it up a little bit. There we go. So now you see it's a little bit brighter, has more pop. Again, there's a lot of people doing images, so if an editor wants to dim it down a little bit, they can do that easy. But you want to make sure your image pops when someone's scrolling through all the thumbnails. On to the next one. This is a cell phone image with a Samsung. It's a 9 megapixel image, so it does have the right requirements. Because it's a phone image, you can see distortion on the edges, especially right here on this tree. As you can see, everything is sharp, and then over here it's soft, even the grass. So there was either a smudge in the phone or something. But this image is a great example of something that would sell, because there you got the tree framing the bay over here. You could also add a person looking down and set your cell phone on a tripod somehow and walk over there and just look at the ocean, or walk the trail with the dog, or something that would give the image more interest. This image is not going to get accepted because of the limitations from the camera. If you crop this out, if you crop the area where the image is soft or blurry, you would lose the size and you would lose the composition. You would have to cut it about that much. I guess it's still not terrible, but now you're getting too close to the tree and there's no room to breathe. That's a little bit better, but there's still lots of detail here in the corner. So because of it's a cell phone, the composition was great. It's awesome. The photographer did a pretty good job here composing the image. But again, better gear is not going to make you a better photographer, but it is going to help you get images accepted. When I made that video about the gear, I don't know if I made that clear. Your gear is not going to make you better. It is just going to help you apply what you know to get cleaner and better images. In this case, a real camera, not that a phone is not, but a bigger camera with more sharpness or a better lens would have gotten more of this in focus and would have made this image a potential seller. The next one here is, well, someone did a lot of work. This is from a Canon 250D with the 18 to 55 millimeter. So that is a kit lens. If I zoom in a little bit, it's a 10 megapixel image. It looks fairly clean. Someone removed the logos from the shoes, and I don't see any logos on the clothing, so that's a really good job. That's great. I just don't know what this guy's doing. I don't know if he's stretching, if he's running, if he fell and injured his leg. I would like to see a little bit more about what's going on, just so you can get an idea of what's happening. A little bit closer down to see the horizon might improve the composition some. This is fine. It'll get accepted, I believe, because I don't see any noise. Kit lenses don't have the best distortion, but this one looks fine. This one should be fine. If I was to improve the image, I don't know that I like cutting people's heads off. It's easy because that way you don't need a model release, but you're also limiting the sellability. If you would have dropped a little bit lower, focused on whatever's going on in here, his shoe or something in this area, you still wouldn't see his face. You might see more in the background. And this was shot This was shot of f3.5 at 18 millimeters. So if you stand back and zoom in a little bit, even at 3.5, nah, not with this lens. This lens is a 5.6. If you zoom in a little bit more, you might be able to blur what's in the front or in the background. But dropping low, showing a little bit more of the horizon, I believe would make you a better image. Like I said, this is fine, this will get accepted. I just don't know how much of a sales potential it has. All right, on to the next image. So this one's interesting. I like all the balloons. Whoever took it captured all the balloons here, and that looks cool. If I was to improve this image, the first thing I would do is straighten out the buildings, and now that's something that happens here with Lightroom. If you go to transform, and then there's an automatic feature, you click that, and the buildings are now straight. That will help you sell them. Architecture photography is very difficult. There's sell lenses that are, you know, $2,000-3,000 lenses, a tilt shift lens. That way the buildings will look straight, the lines will look straight. Lightroom helps us. It's not perfect, but it helps a lot. In this case, I don't know what's going on here. This has to be in editorial images because there's logos, there's other people. I know it's kind of hard when you're walking around taking pictures of events or just things happening to point at people's faces, but it does look better, and it will give you more potential to sell the images. You probably don't have to capture all of the balloons. If you had a telephoto lens, you could zoom in. I don't know what this lens was. Let me look. So the Olympus 12 to 40. Okay, so that's a pretty wide angle. If you had a telephoto, you could close in on the balloons. From this place here, you could probably do like a set of 20 images that will get accepted. I don't see anything wrong with this image. This is pretty. It's be able to get the whole balloons. I think that's what the photographer was going for. It's fine. There's a little bit of information loss here in the highlights, which it's not necessary. That's fine. You can bring it down a little bit. You can bring down and recover some of the sky. Again, a little bit of contrast, make those balloons pop. But yes, I don't see anything wrong with the image. If I was to improve, like I said, I would wait for the people to be towards the camera. You can't see the main subject, so if the people were closer to the camera, I think it would improve the image, and especially if you could see who they are or what they're doing. Sorry guys, my camera just stopped when I was mid-sentence here. I think I'm talking too much. And remember, I'm making these videos in English and Spanish, so every time I do the same image, I'm doubling the time, and it's taking me a little bit longer than I expected. I'm only at image 6, and I actually selected 12, so let me hurry up. Like I said, if you do the whole concept, the whole story about what's going on in this image, you have a lot more potential. If you do close-ups, wides, zooms, and details, you will be giving the buyer a lot of options, and usually they'll buy most of them. That's something that I've learned through experience. On to the next one. So right now we have that's a great image. You're telling a story, you see the pigeon, the guy walking, he's a little bit, no, he's not blurred. A little blurred and out of focus. That's a little bit of, what happened here? What's the shutter speed? 1/60th, that might be what it was, but the image is fine. It's another editorial image. You're capturing time. As you can see here in the corner, your highlights are a little blown out. I would recover that. There's not a lot of information here because this is a JPEG that was emailed to me. If it was a raw image, you would probably be able to recover the highlights and see what's on the brick. That would be like the only thing to fix. And then also, well, let me do that again. And let me straighten out the image so that the angles and the lines are straight. So that looks a little bit better. Like I said, I like to add a little bit of contrast. You don't get carried away. Every time you add contrast, you're adding color contrast too. So you could always just desaturate it a little bit or bring down the vibrance. There's not a lot of detail in the black, but see that, to me that looks fine. If I compare it to the original one, you don't have the blown out highlights. Again, I'm working with different limitations here because of the images that I don't have the raw image. I don't even know if the camera can do raw image. I'm not familiar with this one. But anyway, this is a great image. You're capturing a moment in time, and I think it's great. The guy walking looks fine. The guy on the bike, you know, he's kind of like in the way, but whatever. What are you going to do? Like I said, this is a moment in time. If you're waiting for the person to walk through, you're probably never going to get it right. But as an editorial, I could see potential for something like this of selling. There's another cell phone image, and wow, that's kind of cool. I like that the picnic table is floating away. So this one looks fine. Again, the cell phones just don't have the best clarity and quality. I don't know that this will get accepted because of that. As you can see, there's a lot of information missing from the shadows and the darks. If I bring that up, you can't recover that, and that's because it's a phone. It's big enough. The concept is good. If you would have sat there and ate a picnic, that would have made a much better image, but sadly you're not sitting there in the water. Now I might be able to cut it, crop it a little bit so that that tree is not in the way and eliminate distractions. Stock photography is about clean images. You do want to frame things sometimes, but that thing there was kind of distracting. This branch, especially because it's just a shadow, there's no information. So if I crop it out of the way, I think that would make a better image. That would help you and give you a little bit of negative space. The bench here is the subject. I mean, it's obvious that's where your eye goes. You're questioning what's happening here. So if I put the subject on the bottom third, I like this dead tree here. That helps a little bit. That might have more potential to selling than the full image. So that's just a quick way to improve your images, is to crop. I think the photographer here was trying to frame it with this, but that's just not a good frame. That's all right. I know who took the picture. He told me I could be harsh, but I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm trying to be nice. Sorry, this was not gonna get accepted, and that's just because technical limitations. That's a really pretty waterfall. This is from a Sony ZV-E10. I'm not familiar with that camera. So the waterfall looks pretty. It's a very small image. So this is not gonna get accepted because it's 0.9 megapixels. Most agencies require 5 or more. So this is not gonna get accepted. The waterfall looks very pretty, but again, I could bring up the shadows some, that's fine. I could bring up the shadows and drop the highlights so I don't lose the background. Usually you wanna see a little bit more about what's everywhere. Something like this, I would like to see straight also. I don't know if the tree was straight. Let's see what Lightroom does. I'm just gonna crop a little bit just to give it more, try to make it a little bit more pleasing composition. You don't have to, the image was fine. It's just a little bit too small to get accepted. There's no detail and the water's a little murky, but no, it's a great image. Again, the technology is the fall of this image. No pun intended. If you're doing travel stock photography, adding a person, adding someone hiking, that would make it a lot more interesting. Something like this would have a little bit limited use, but again, if you use a tripod, take your self-portrait, go out on the rocks, stand in different places, walk around, take multiple images, come back and do this, now you have a lot more potential and a lot more images to work with. Okay, there you go. Now this is a Canon 250D with a 50mm. So that is a good concept image. That's where the concept is on the hands, and it is sharp. So yes, again, I can see this one having sales potential. It's a clean image. It looks like somebody added here a little bit of a glow, which looks fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's good. It looks clean. I don't see any visible noise. There's a little bit of green here, but that's fine. That's not gonna affect anything, I don't think. This image would have potential. Framing it, if you would have gotten a little bit closer, maybe you can give it a little more, but I don't see anything wrong with it. Again, I'm just looking to add something, how to improve next time. And sometimes there's not much to improve. It's a great concept, technology, someone texting, you don't see anything on the screen. Anybody could add anything to that screen as an editor. If you got a little bit closer to the hands and then maybe even something like that. But again, there's no need. This is a great image, good concept. Let's move on to the next. And that's a lion that's sleeping here. So if I go and look at the settings, this is a Sony DHC H300. It's a 20 megapixel image. but it looks blurry and very soft. So if I remember right, this camera is a digital zoom, and what that does is it zooms in, but it's cropping. So even though you're filling the sensor with the image, it's very noisy, and you can see a lot of detail here. Let me see how the image. So this was shot with ISO 80 and 640 millimeters. So all the blur and stuff that I'm seeing is from the digital zoom. I'm assuming 157 millimeters. So that has to be digital zoom. The image not gonna get accepted. There's a lot of noise, color, and in the shadows you can see a lot, and it looks blurred. It looks like it's motion blur, but I don't think so. I think that is just the optical zoom, or the digital zoom, I mean. So it is not gonna get accepted. In this case, tell the whole story. You know, there's a lot of ways of taking a picture of a lion, and I understand we all want to go for those big shots with the big lenses where you just get that big roar and you get the whole feeling in the lion's head, and it just looks amazing. But you don't have the camera to do that, so use your gear the best way you can. Shoot wide. Show where you are, show the lion in this cage, show what's happening, and that'll give you potential to sell in different ways. I mean, obviously you can see the fence in the back, so you're not gonna sell it like a wild animal. So go for the other concept, go for animals in captivity. You could, you know, just because we don't have the gear we want at the time that we're taking pictures doesn't mean we can't use the gear we have the best we can use it. And in this case, shooting wide, showing more of what's happening will give you a little bit more potential to sell an image like this, and it would actually get you better images because that's the way your camera was designed. This digital zoom thing, I don't like it. It's I've never been a fan. It just kind of ruins images. And as you can see here in the shadows, there's a lot of noise. Just use what you have to its max potential. That's kind of like the best thing I can say with this image. So let's move on to the next, which is the special one. This is someone that sent me their portfolio, just a screenshot of the portfolio, and I wanted to talk about this one because this is an awesome stock images. I mean, I can't zoom in because it's a screenshot. I'll blur all this stuff here on the top so you're not worried about your information. But on something like this, you can see the person, they're smiling, they're happy, they got the violin, different backgrounds, close-up. So this is a great way to start a portfolio. It just looks awesome. But images like these on backgrounds and things like that, those were selling 5 years ago. They'll still sell, and you have a lot of potential to sell these images. But trends change, and that's why I selected this image for this first video, is to keep up with the trends. Now a lot of people are buying real people doing real things, so lifestyle shoots. So not that these aren't, but obviously this is in a studio. You got controlled lighting, you got the background, the person is isolated in the background. So doing something like this in real life, that would give you a lot better maybe not images, but a lot more potential to sell the images, because that's a real lifestyle situation in their music studio or in the living room, or just, it's a lot more difficult to control the lighting. But those are something to keep in mind, some shots to keep in mind. Bring your camera out when you go to a concert, see what results you get. These are great. This is a great portfolio here. This is a great set. Those will definitely sell. They're clear, they're crisp, and the concept is just, it's awesome. So this photographer did a fantastic job. I do see some, like on this one here, the dark in the corners. When you're trying to isolate a person, is difficult. The lighting in the background is very, very important. And in here, you're missing a little bit. I think that was on purpose, so that's fine. But when you're trying to isolate or give the whole color, an editor's want that color throughout the whole image instead of the vignette that I see in these images. That's the only thing I can add. But yeah, no, these are great. These will sell. These will get accepted. Yeah. And like that, we finished. This is my very first review video. I think I went past the 10-minute mark that I wanted to keep it under. I want to keep doing more videos like this, so go ahead and send me more images to the email in the description. I still have quite a few more that I'm going to do, 2 or 3 more videos. It was a little overwhelming, all the emails and the pictures I started getting, so I want to do more. I'm going to speed it up a little bit more for next time. This was my very first, so I'm learning. I want to thank you all for sending all these images. It's awesome to see the community grow. I hope you got something of value. I really hope you got value out of this video. If you did, please consider subscribing to my channel. It really does help me out a lot. Don't forget to like the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.